Today I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can weave loops to get that beautiful texture on your next piece. Let's get started. The first loop texture we're going to talk about is slip knot loops. What I love about these is that they're adjustable and you can work directly off your ball of yarn. So the first thing you're going to do is knot your yarn around a warp string, and then I'm going to go to the next string over, pass my yarn underneath the warp string, creating a loop with my other hand. Then I'm going to pass all of this excess through that loop, creating another loop. And what you can do now is just simply tighten that up, and you can create long loops. You can adjust it super easily to create short loops, and you can kind of vary the length as you go. So let's do that again. If you're using a chunky yarn like me, you can even skip a warp string and go to the next one so it doesn't get too crowded. So I'm passing the yarn underneath the warp string, creating a loop, pass the rest of the yarn through, creating another loop, and then tighten up that knot. Turning around doing the slip knot loops is actually super easy. I'm gonna just do them the exact same way. So I ended on this string, I'm gonna go back this way now. So you don't even have to switch up how you're knotting them. You can just move in the other direction, and you can create these beautiful layers with this slip knot loop, giving your piece some really interesting and organic texture. Another thing you can do if you want to create more space between the loops is just simply do a few rows of plain weave before you begin another row of the loops. To finish off your slip knot loops, all you have to do is the same thing that we did when we started and just tie a knot so that those loops don't easily come undone. Next up, we have Rya Loops. This one is actually pretty similar to the slip knot loops, but you're gonna do 2 loops at a time. So all I've done again is start with a knot on the second warp string in. I have my ball of yarn over on the right side because I'm moving left to right. So I'm going to grab the yarn like this. I'm gonna bring one side around this left string and then go to the next one and bring the other side around the right string. Then, just like the slip knot loops, you can kind of adjust this. So I want these ones pretty short. So I'm gonna just pull on this right side, get that one the length that I want, and then I can just pull this length to get the other one a similar length as well. And then you can move over to the next 2 strings. And again, I'm just holding my yarn horizontally. I'm going to work on these 2 strings next. So in my left hand, I'm gonna bring that one around the left string, this one around the right string, and then I'm gonna start pulling down. So I can use the right one to adjust the left loop, get it to the length I want, and then I can use this right yarn to adjust the right loop. So then we skip to the next 2 warp strings, the left around the left, the right around the right, adjust it to the length you want, and just secure those Rya knots down. And you can see that they look just like a regular Rya knot would, but this is again working directly off the ball of yarn. To turn around with this stitch, I'm just gonna move my ball of yarn over to the left side now, because now we're gonna be moving from right to left. So I'm gonna go on the same 2 strings I just went on, and if you are worried about structure, it's a good idea to add a row or 2 of plain weave between them if you're gonna be doing a lot of loops. I'm holding it the same way, but now it's gonna be kind of the opposite. So we're gonna put the right string around the right, the left around the left, and now I'm gonna use my left hand to adjust this right loop. And then I can pull this to adjust that. And you can just continue back the other way like this. Now to finish this one off, I'm gonna finish it just the way I did the slip knot loops as well. I'm gonna leave a nice long tail and just pick a warp string and tie a knot around that, just so things don't slip out, and that can be tucked in later. Last but not least, we have pile weave. Now for this one, you're going to want to cut off a decent length of yarn. I'm going to grab about 2 arms lengths, and you're going to need a thin dowel or some sort of rod. You can even use something like a second tapestry needle if you have one. But what we're going to do here is create some pretty even loop texture. So the first thing I'm going to do is a row of plain weave, which is just weaving over one, under one, all the way across my warp. I'm gonna leave a nice long tail on one end, and then I'm gonna use my tapestry needle for this. So everywhere that the weft, which is our horizontal string, is going over top of a warp string, we're going to pick up a loop. So I'm gonna grab this loop, not the warp string, just the weft string. And we wanna create some extra slack coming from this direction so that we don't lose our tail on this one. Then I'm gonna grab the next spot where it's going over the warp, and I'm gonna continue doing that all the way across. And I wanna make sure that it's nice and snug against my tapestry needle. So you can even go back and tighten it up more if you feel like it needs it. And once that's all secure in there, you're going to take your yarn and you're going to weave plain weave again. So my yarn came underneath this warp string in the last row, so I'm going to go over top in the next one. Don't forget to create your arch. We're gonna beat that down nice and snug. And now we can work on another row of pile weave. So I'm going to weave in another row of plain weave. I'm going to take out this tapestry needle. I am gonna just beat that down a little bit more so I know that it's nice and secure. And then once again, I'm gonna work from the left to the right, and I'm gonna pull all the slack from this way and not from over here. So everywhere that weft is going over the warp, I'm picking up the yarn and sort of winding it around the needle all the way across the warp. And I'm gonna leave that in there, and once again, do a row of plain weave on top of that to secure it down. Now I can pull out the tapestry needle, or rod or dowel, whatever you've got, and then push it down just a little bit more so that it's really nice and secure. Now these loops are stacked directly on top of each other. So to get them to be staggered, what you can do is do another row of plain weave, and now we can work from the other direction. So I'm gonna do one more row of plain weave, and this will be the one that we're doing our loops on now. So this time I'm gonna work from the right to left, and now I'm gonna wrap from right to left. Then we can do our securing plain weave on top of that, beat down the weft, and now we can remove that tapestry needle and squish that all together. Pile weave is what you see in a loopy textured rug, and it's just going to give you that really even loop texture instead of the more organic stuff we've got going down here. Because we're using the same size of dowel or rod each time, it makes the loops the same size every time. Here's all that beautiful loopy texture, and if you want to learn more weaving stitches, check out this video next.